Welcome to Starting with today's My Hair appointment. And today we are talking about the role that doulas play in the birthing process. So we are excited to have this conversation with Désirée. So stay tuned. Tell a friend, text a friend. We're about to get started, y'all. Let's get connected. Yes! Third time's a charm.
Third time is the charm.
Hey, we
Hey,
are here. Hey, Desiree, thank you so much for joining us
no
and having
problem.
this conversation. I'm gonna try to get a little bit more situated here, and then we can get started. Of course, it's a Monday type of Wednesday, so we're just gonna take
Yeah,
it
yeah.
as it comes. We are in no real rush. All right. All right, so today we have Désirée Sprauve. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
It is. Yep, Sprout.
Okay, great. So she is a doula, and we'll get to her in a minute, but just want to give you a quick background, just in case it's your first time joining Starting with Today. This is one of our latest programs, My Hair Appointment. It is a space for Black women to explore, cultivate, and define our own wellness on our own terms, and to really have the conversations that we have in a barbershop, in a beauty shop, and with our girlfriends at wine tasting, and to really bring in experts so that information is not, he said, she said, they said, cousin, auntie said, and make sure that we're getting the most up-to-date and accurate information from experts in the field. And so that's really the purpose of this conversation, to fortify the conversations that we're already having in our communities and with our girlfriends and with our family members and with our loved ones, and to make sure we're bringing, tangible, real and accurate information. So this one is birthed out of many things, right? So there's been many cases where we've seen in the news over the last years where people have been really public about the challenges that Black women have been having with birthing and the maternal health crisis. Also, infant mortality as well, which is a whole nother thing. So we want to talk about the roles that doulas play in this process. And let's just get started by Desiree, just tell us a little bit about you, and the doula you desire, and how you got into this, and how you landed where you are with your passion.
Oh, yeah. So, hello, everyone. I am Désirée Sprauve. I'm a holistic doula, a prenatal yogi guide, also with meditation, and I'm a holistic wellness advocate. And so essentially my role in life is just to serve other people. And so that brings me a lot of joy. I feel very fulfilled by that because I just get to guide people through different sacred transitions that they have.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, it's very much so an honor, and I feel honored by the calling that was like placed on my heart to do. I was in a completely different field before. So
I completely understand the same. I worked for corporate for a while, and
yeah.
then did local government, and I knew I just had a passion to really, I've been doing this all my life, but really to serve people and to kind of just make that leap, and trust the path that was destined for me, for sure. And I think one of the things that you talked about, that you just, mentioned, was about this divine transition, and thinking about birth as a transition, and definitely divine, right? And I think even that that phrasing, allows us to approach the process a little bit deeper and better as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. A lot of people see birth as just an event, that like something is just happening and then, whoa, baby. It's like, whoa, this is a spiritual process that is occurring. This is like a transition that affects every single facet of one's life, right? Like
Yeah.
spiritually, mentally, physically. I mean, the full gamut. And so for us to kind of approach it with this one-dimensional approach, it is a fallacy. Like so, it really is multidimensional, and I think that we're understanding a little bit more that we need to approach it accordingly.
Yeah, and I think it's a return back, right? Because I believe we've always understood this. And then, being here on this land has stripped us from the time and the space to really cultivate our own practices and healing and rituals in that aspect. And I think now we're demanding it again. And I think that's really important that we're reclaiming that space and that energy. One of the things that brought me here, even to starting with today, is I had lost a child at 36 weeks, right? And I was young and younger. And, not, I spoke up for myself. Like, I told the doctor I was sick the entire pregnancy, and they just kind of washed it off. And and I talked about this in the last one we did in the series with the Black OBGYN, Dr. Jocelyn Slaughter, who's amazing as well, another Howard alum. And one of the things that came up is, like, I spoke up for myself. I also didn't have anything to compare it to, right? And I didn't know what my rights were. I didn't know what options were available to me. So I'm taking, hoping that this doctor has my best interest at heart, right? And at the end of the day, I'm just another patient, right? And I had to kind of navigate that. So I said, the next time I go through a pregnancy, right, that it would definitely be doula on deck. When I found out Erykah Badu was doing, that was like, I went down this whole rabbit hole. Huh?
I said, and training to be a midwife.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yes. And I was like, oh my gosh, if she can sing me, hum me something through a birthing process, that would be amazing. And so that kind of really began me to explore, like, what a doula means, and then also kind of how pregnancy loss, infertility, definitely pain. You talk about Serena Williams had to advocate for her own life in the middle of giving birth, and the trauma that is associated with that, and not just her, but for many Black women, and then unfortunately the ones that we've lost during childbirth as well. So just want to kind of talk about the intersections that you feel that, I know for me, like, I just kind of think of maybe some of the peace that may come with bringing a doula into the situation. Talk about the role of a doula, and then, how that plays into the mental health of the pregnancy.
Absolutely. So a lot of people may know or may not know that a doula is someone who is essentially just supporting you through whatever transition you're going through. And so you have fertility doulas, you have birth doulas, you have postpartum doulas, you have loss doulas, you have abortion doulas, you have death doulas, you have, right? And so, see, a lot of people
didn't know that.
Yeah. So there's so many different transitions that we as people go through, and we need support through that. And that's really a doula's role, is supporting people in whatever transition that they have. So as a birth doula, my particular role is a lot of education and teaching people, what are things I need to look out for? I'm a holistic doula, so I'm looking at someone's full life. I'm looking at you physically, emotionally, spiritually. Are you aligned? And like within, because birth, in my opinion, is a very spiritual experience. And so we have to look at it very holistically. So my role as a doula is education, number one. Knowledge is power. It is power. And so I think it's very imperative that I teach as much as I can. There's so much to talk about within the birthing space, but I teach at the very minimum or maximum of conversations that need to be occurred, questions that you need to ask your medical provider. I go through your birth plan. Your birth plan is, I can't express.
And even just that, the birth plan, it's like, I've been around people having babies all their life. I have never really, heard of a, maybe once or twice, but it was very, high income kind of a conversation, and nothing that I felt like was tangible or accessible to me or my community or my peers, especially, early on. So just having that as a guide, what that begins to look like.
Yeah, and the importance of the birth plan is not about the plan. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the birthing space. It's about knowing your options, it's
Mm.
knowing what questions to ask, knowing, oh, I can have this, or that. And a lot of times, just like you said, people in our communities are not even aware that we can do things beyond what the doctor is telling us. That is a problem because we cannot advocate for ourselves if we don't even know what to ask. So
That's so true. That is so true. So what about your clients and the role? I just can kind of imagine having someone to guide you through that process immediately begins to relieve some stress and pressure that comes off a very anxious and, a nervous, exciting time. But how do you initiate that role in that transition to try to make sure that they're spiritually aligned and grounded throughout this process?
yeah, for me, I always start all of my prenatal sessions with meditation
Nice.
because it's necessary. We have so many things going on throughout our day. And it's important if we're having a conversation like this, a heart to heart like this,
Yeah.
that we're not bringing all the anxiety of earlier today. We don't need that. So, like, stick to where we are, being mindful of where we are in this time, in this place, in this space. And so I always start off with meditation, and that immediately puts people in a different mindset. So that helps, yes, spiritually, but also helps physically. Our parasympathetic nervous system has been introduced, and so now we're calmer. Our shoulders are down. Our breathing becomes like at a different, more relaxed pace. Our heart is moving in a different space. And so all of these things combined allow us to really relax, really sit, really understand what's going on and what we're about to talk about. So I think that is just something, just a very easy thing to incorporate in one's life so that we don't bring the tensions of all about. Anytime I'm going to like a new transition, I center myself first. So if I'm going to the grocery store, let's center self before we come into this house. If I am leaving work, center self before we go into this meeting or this IG.
Yes.
And such a simple practice that you can get from YouTube, you can get on apps, anywhere that you can incorporate. And I think that's something that really helps. And I don't know how people are doing it without meditation, honestly. So
It is such a great tool, and we've done some meditation live sessions here, and we have more planned, and they're so good. And I think the same for me, right? And that needing to slow down and to take and assess what is happening right now, and to understand that um, everything that I need is here right now.
mhm.
And just to have that mental release, I think it's really good. It's a really good practice to incorporate and to really just be intentional about it. And I think a lot of times we think it has to be an hour long, or it needs to be
Oh,
super still, or all these things in a quiet, super still place where you can meditate while you're waiting in line. You can begin to block out and have even 2-minute meditations. I think really begins to reset the energy in the space. So I think that's really amazing. So what do you think are some questions when people, we talk about a lot with therapists, right? So finding the right fit. So how do you, as a doula, try to find your right fit for the client? And then how do you feel clients should try to find the right fit for the right doula?
yes. I am a huge advocate for energy and understanding when energy aligns and when it doesn't, and understanding your own intuition and what feels good to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because people could be wonderful, but it doesn't mean that the energy's aligned. And I think that's very important to understand. You'll know from an initial conversation, right? We had an initial conversation. We don't necessarily know each other yet, but
Right.
okay, I can feel your energy. I feel your vibe. You feel my vibe. And so that's how you know that this is a partnership to cultivate. And so that's how I go about with any client. If there is ever a time, if a client feels that the connection isn't there, I literally take no angst against that at all, because it's just energy.
Yeah.
So if they vibe, they vibe. And if not, that's okay too.
Awesome. Awesome. That's really good. Okay, so I know you're a holistic doula. So can you explain that? And then what role do you play for your iteration of it? How do you work in the birthing process? Just kind of work us through some of the steps of how that works.
Oh yeah, so holistic doula, I'm looking at your whole life. I'm all up in there, because your whole life is going to determine how you show up in the birthing space. If you had trauma before, that is 100% showing up in the birthing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we need to have those kind of heart-to-heart kind of conversations. So essentially, like I was mentioning, education for sure, and also just cultivating the relationship. If this is, in my opinion, very sacred. This is a very, very sacred space, and so I need to ensure that you, as the client, feel comfortable with me, and whether that's checking up on each other, whether that's, you know, sending funny things here and there, whether that's sending spiritual words, whether that's sending books to read, just things that continue to cultivate the relationship. Even though I may not be on call for a client, I'm still talking to all my clients, like
True.
all the time, because they become like friends. I think a doula essentially is like your best friend during this transitional time. You can call me and ask me questions. You can, if you're having a rough day, let's talk it out. Let's work through it. If there's a difficult point, let's work through it. If you're having a phenomenal day, great. Let's also talk about that. So
Yeah, I think that's really good. A good point too, because a lot of times we don't focus on the things that go right, and then try to recognize those shrimps that are happening, or to recognize the patterns that are really working for us as well, right? I think it's really good to be intentional about documenting our good days too, and what flows, and remembering what that feels like, and tapping back into that as much as possible. So you do the education and you check in, and then boom, the water breaks. What happens?
It's education, it's the meditation, it's the conversations, and then boom, it's go time. And so go time is not what it looks like in the movies, right? It's not like water breaks and everybody freaks out. It's like there are 3 stages of labor. So you have your early labor, and then you have active labor. After active labor, you have transition, and then you have the pushing phase, and then you birth the placenta. And so a lot of people may not know about that full scope of it, so that as soon as your water may break, it doesn't immediately mean that you need to run to the hospital. It just means you need to slow down, take some rest, eat, hydrate, go through the motions. The contractions or surges typically won't be that aggressive in the very beginning. And so I'm just guiding the client through that process. And not only am I guiding them through that process, but I'm supporting any fears that might pop up. If they like, I can't do this. Yes, you can. And affirmations. We can, if the body is not responding well, we can do heat therapy, cold therapy. We can do acupressure. Which is separate from acupuncture.
Okay.
You look for the pressure points like throughout the body, and that can alleviate some of the symptoms. And so you can also do, there's so many things. So you can do massages, right? There are times where a client may be in labor and the contractions aren't that bad, everybody's chilling, but it would be really nice if you can simultaneously receive a massage or talk things out. I'm also, people say I'm kind of funny, so I'm like, I am
2 for 1 there, 2 for 1,
So, So, yeah, comedic relief if necessary. I was birthed with my godfather, kind of like my doula. And so he had my mom cracking up the entire time. And so
Right.
she didn't really feel the contractions that much because it's a distraction,
Mm.
distraction. And so that
And
is,
you know, and everything I think I experienced definitely was everything was very serious. And I haven't seen like depictions of like joyous, funny, you
yeah,
know, birthing energy space, you know. And I think that would be like amazing to even just imagine that as a possibility, you know.
exactly. And it's all about like shifting the energy. Of course, during different parts of the labor, everything is not going to be laughing and ha
Right.
ha, of course. But as just like the music will change as you go through the different transitions of a birth, the person that I show up as changes
Mm.
the birth. So maybe in the beginning we're listening to more fun music, and then slowly but surely we're listening to deeper, more primal sounds, different frequencies,
Mm.
different types of music, because you need, you know, different things at different stages. Um, so yeah, you can show up like that within the labor and the birth, and then afterwards a main role of a doula is advocacy and teaching the clients how to advocate for themselves, right? So
Yes.
my role isn't to look at your doctor, is not to look at your doctor and say, this is everything that the client wants and desires. It's my role to teach the client to learn how to advocate for themselves. So we go over ideas such as brain, which is if somebody is bringing you a procedure, how do you ask for the benefits, the risks, the alternatives? Do you ask for what is your own intuition saying? What happens if you just say no? And so these are kind of tools that we can bring to our clients so they can shift. I always look at things as, yeah, sure, I can bring you fish, but if I taught you how to fish, that will last you a lifetime. And so that idea of the brain method won't support you just in this one moment. It will support you the next time you go to the doctor, the grocery store, the acupuncturist, like anywhere. This kind of methodology will support the client for forever, really. And so my role is really to teach people how to advocate for themselves and sitting in their capability to own that. Like you have
Yeah.
the right to ask questions, you have the right to say no. And I think teaching,
I I love that. I love that. And I just want you to repeat it again, just in
yeah,
case anybody needs to grab a pen really quickly and type and write that out. And I'm
so
definitely going to, you know, take a mental note and use that in all my spaces. And I think it's sometimes we do that, you know, unconsciously, right? And then, but
yeah,
to bring it to awareness and to really have a methodology behind it, I think is really important.
yeah. So it is called brain. And so if somebody's asking to do a certain procedure, first you need to ask what is the nature of the procedure, what are the benefits, what are the risks associated with it, are there any alternatives to this particular procedure? What does my intuition say, right? We have to always go into intuition. And then what happens if I say no? You always have the right to say no, even if that means the detriment of self, you have the right to say no. And so teaching what informed consent looks like,
Mm-hmm.
what rights look like, what are the patient bill of rights, what is it for your particular state, for your particular country,
Mm-hmm.
what you have the right to say, do, etc. So advocacy is a major part of it, particularly with the climate that we're in right now for Black women, Hispanic women, um, and people in different minorities.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that, you know, brings uh, a theme for starting with today, right? Is the advocacy piece and the teaching, right? And I believe once one person is taught, then they can teach, you
Right.
know, more people than we can reach on our own. And if that information is good, solid, and digestible, then it can really move
Yeah.
the thought process of our collective. So that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so we have this beautiful brown baby.
The baby's here.
The baby's here.
Now we step into what's called early postpartum. So early postpartum, the doula is supporting you, helping you to breastfeed, and also honoring whatever desires you have for your newborn. If that means to get vaccines, to not get vaccines. If that means you want to wash your baby first before they wash off of the vernix, which is the white stuff on the baby. After they're born. So I am there to honor your decisions for your newborn as well. Helping with breastfeeding, helping you just align to this new idea that this baby is now in my arms, no longer within my womb. And so how does that look? So yeah, that's what a doula does in the scope of the birthing space. And then of course you have postpartum, which is a whole separate kind of topic, also very important, but a completely separate topic. And that is helping a mother transition into this new world that even if she's had a child before, it is a complete world because it's your space plus one or plus if you have multiples. And so supporting women through that, because that will and can affect all facets, but definitely about the mental portion that we were talking about before.
Absolutely. I think that would be a great time. I'm just thinking about having those meditation practices beforehand. So by the time the baby is here, you've had this ritual in place, because I feel like everything is, new and changing and challenging. And so to have those grounding practices in place, I think can be beneficial for both the mother and the child. So I think that's a really beautiful thing that, you begin that in the prenatal process. And then, so I think that's really good. Do you think there are ways that or challenges that new mothers need to advocate for their babies as well once they arrive? And do you feel like you go through the same process of, really advocating for your child as well?
100%. I think that could be even a little bit more of a different process, because you have this heightened sense of I need to protect this baby. So it's not even about yourself anymore. And so because your baby is here, you have your senses, your hormones, everything is at a much heightened state. We become very primal in those moments. And so there's so many items that one needs to advocate for in the postpartum phase with the newborn, whether that is if you want vaccines for the baby or not, and declining it, knowing your rights enough to decline it with confidence if that's what you want to do. Because you'll be, depending on the state, you'll be inundated with people saying, I'll call Child Protective Services on you, or we'll take your baby away, and that induces fear, right? And so, or not doing the eye ointment, or wanting to keep your own placenta to encapsulate it, or to have a lotus birth, which is when the placenta stays attached to the baby in the umbilical cord until it naturally falls off. So there are many, many, many points that a mother or a partner or a family dynamic will have to advocate for a baby after the baby is born.
And you brought up a really good point. What role do you feel the partner plays in the birthing process, right? So we won't necessarily just say it's a man, could be any partner, any partner in the birthing process, or community, or best friend. Like, what role does that person play in the birthing process, or responsibility that you feel like they should take on throughout the process and transition?
Yeah, I think that partners don't get enough of publicity within this space, and it's like, whoa, this person is important.
That's very.
The entire family dynamic. It is to the community. It is important to how that baby is going to grow up, and it's important to the birthing person, right? The birthing person needs support, whether that is helping them maintaining their diet. And so you can't be eating McDonald's and the birthing person is like, all right, I have to eat this salad. It's like a group effort. If that means a spiritual practice, if the mom or birthing person is meditating, do that with the birthing person, because honestly and truly, this is a wonderful time to cultivate and deepen the intimacy between each other. And not even just like sexually, just like on a very intimate level. And it could be so beautiful. And that's something that we don't really think or talk about. Reading the books, doing the doula sessions with the partner. It can be in the birthing space, holding hands, reminding of the affirmations, reminding them of what their desires are, rubbing the feet rather. So there's just so many opportunities for the partner to be an active participant, and the doula's role is never and could never replace the partner. Never right. That. I have a completely separate role than the partner. I help the partner and guide the partner and teach the partner. I am not the partner. So what I try to describe a doula, there's like, it's like a second baby daddy. And I'm like, that is not my role. Like,
no. You're not there forever.
Right. Well, with my clients, actually, I'm around like for always. But
right. Well, that's a beautiful gift as well. But you're right; it's a completely different role, and I think too, the partner, should something happen to the birthing person, to make sure that they're able to advocate on behalf of that person. In the time should a crisis occur, I think that's really important, that they have the information, the tools, again, like they've talked through it, regardless of the relationship status, that it is a collaborative effort to make sure everyone gets through this process whole and healthy.
Exactly. And actually, that's a great point that you bring up. And that's why it's very important that if there is a partner around, I kind of request, or actually almost require, that the partner is there as well, because they need to have the same information that the birthing person has, because God forbid something was to occur. Yes, I know all the information, but this person needs to know as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially if they have different rights as well. I forget what it's called, power of attorney, to make those decisions as well. All right, there's a couple questions, and then if you do have questions too, y'all can leave it in the Q&A box, and we can see that pop up. But I know a couple came in on the thread, and so one was, does health insurance cover a doula?
So it actually depends on your state. So some states do pay for doulas, but actually at this time, doulas are very much so advocating for fair wages from insurance companies. Some insurance companies are giving maybe $300 reimbursement, $500 reimbursement. That is no one can live off of that, because there's so much work that goes into being a birth worker. $500, $300 is not appropriate, nor
not. Do you want to talk about the range? I think that's a great question to have. I've seen ranges, Yeah, can you talk about the range?
The range really, really and truly depends on the particular doula. Okay. And so there are community-based doulas, which could be free or low cost, which is phenomenal. There are doulas that work in, there are doulas that work for organizations, and so they get paid through the organization based on whatever rate the organization has agreed upon. Some organizations have grants, and
Okay.
there's some type of exchange there. And the range could go very, very varied. There are doulas who are free, and then there are doulas who are $10,000-$15,000. And so it really depends on the community that's being served and the range that people, can afford.
Yeah, and I've seen that like up to about 20,000.
Yeah,
For
yeah, yeah. I'm sure I can think of like doulas who are probably like well beyond even 20,000. That is not.
Erica Badu. I'm sure she's gonna
Oh,
cost me.
I don't know what her rate.
We got to start the
Sure.
GoFundMe now for Erica.
Right, right. um,
What's the range you recommend for new doulas? I guess that can depend. Okay, so then I saw a question.
mhm.
Do you still run into that having kids at home or in a birthing center? And I'm not sure now what they're referring to. What we were talking about at that point, I'm not sure.
Yuma, would you mind, if you're still in here, would you mind clarifying that? Sorry, we didn't see the question during the conversation itself.
And I'll pull up the other question while Yuma types. Where can you find your state registry of doulas? That's a
Oh,
great question. Thank you for asking.
yeah, that's a great question. I would say that if you go on maybe like blackdoulas.com, there's a National Black Doula Association, phenomenal. They have listings of Black doulas that are within their organization. You can just type in your city and say Black Doula NYC, Black Doula Cincinnati, Black Doula Washington, D.C., if you're looking for a Black doula, of course. But doulas do not have to register with the state. And so there's no full registry of all the doulas. You just have to do your own research. And you can look at hashtags on Instagram, websites, there are registries to find a database of doulas.
I love that. One of the maybe kind of think about too, maybe we should explain the difference. We kind of reference this a little bit between a doula and a midwife.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I actually get that question a lot.
Yeah.
So how I like to describe the difference between a doula and a midwife is if you are looking visually at a birthing person, a midwife is at the sacred passageway, meaning like the vaginal canal. You'll see them here. And then the doula visually would be at the back, at the shoulders, at the chest, on the side, supporting the mother in that way. So a midwife is a medical provider. And so anything that is happening medically with that client, that is the midwife's role. I, as a doula, am a non-medical support person. And so essentially, I'm there to like support the mother and the partner throughout the pregnancy, but certainly I'm not a medical provider.
Awesome. Thank you so
But
much for that clarification.
on a majority of medical terminology, medical jargon, obviously medical terms.
Right.
I'm a holistic doula, so I'm also speaking on nature, herbs, etc. So yeah, that is high level the difference between a midwife and a doula.
Thank you. That's a great clarification and a visual to go with as well. I think the question for the range for the new doula, I'm assuming this person is a new doula or considering becoming a doula.
Yeah,
and like, how do you
yeah.
want to?
I think she is becoming a doula. She's going to take the training soon. And that 100% depends on the community that you're serving. And so you can have a sliding scale. You can have a sliding scale which is based on income of your client. So let's say the person makes $20,000 a year. Your rate could be, I don't know, $100. let's say the person makes $50,000 a year, your rate could be $300. These are all arbitrary numbers, but I'm just trying to show what the sliding scale can be. And so it just depends on the community you're serving, because obviously if you're serving a community of like Serena Williams and, you know, LeBron James' wife or something, your rate is obviously high up there.
And it requires more experience as well. You know,
Yeah.
I think too, as you get more experience with any career field, I think the price of the bag goes up.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like with the more experience, if you've had 10 births, then you can have a certain rate. And if you go past the 10 births, then you'll have another rate. And so you can keep moving and shifting. It's completely up to you. Just do the research based on your community and the people within your environment and scope, and never lowball yourself.
Indeed. Indeed. Especially if you're Black. All right, so sorry to see the question. Okay, here we go. So do you find that birthing centers support delayed cutting the cord? I'm sorry, I can't read the rest of the question. That's all it shows me, Yuma. I know that's Thai, so I can't read the rest of the question. So I'm assuming
Saving the placenta. And Yuma let us know if that is what you meant. But yeah, birthing centers are typically more adept on natural practices. It's usually a much more gentler approach to the birthing experience. So that could mean, I can almost say 100% that a birthing center will not even give any problems whatsoever with delayed cord clamping or wanting to encapsulate your placenta. But of course, I'm speaking from a New York City perspective. Things may be different in Ohio, you know, South Dakota, something of that nature. But typically, birthing center have a completely different philosophy than a hospital.
Do you have a preference for one, or you just support your clients on, you know, whatever they decide?
I support the clients in whatever environment that they desire to birth, but I absolutely do not support unassisted births. So I'm all for people birthing in any way that they desire, but I personally couldn't take on the liability of being an unassisted birth.
Absolutely makes sense. Thank you for that. There's another one. All right. Should you be looking for certain certifications in a doula? Great question. Thank you for asking.
That is a really good question. I think that really depends. There's so many different trains of thought on this idea. Because just like midwifery, you can be a traditional midwife, you can be a certified professional midwife, you can be a certified nurse midwife. And there's one more I can't think of. And a traditional midwife does not go to school for this at all, right? But they have learned and have been reared under someone who is a midwife and has been a midwife for many years. They still have to take their testing and do all of that kind of work, but they did not go to school for it. And so does that make them any less of a wonderful midwife? No. Right. And like this idea of that we have to be certified to be well and professional within our fields is capitalism at its finest. But
it's a fairly new concept, right? Because we have been birthing babies since forever without certifications before certifications were a thing.
Exactly.
And in our, you know, African history and culture, a lot of things are passed down from one, you know, elder specialist to the next, and there's typically a lineage designated that they're following. You know, we think about that as something, you know, very formal, but we do it the same way. If our mom cooked and did Thanksgiving dinner, we're probably going to be the cook in Thanksgiving dinner for our family. You know, your sister knew how to braid hair, your auntie knew how to braid hair, you know how to braid. It's those things are we still passing down informally, and those skill sets are not being lost. But I think there is a reclaiming that definitely needs to happen for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also depends on the comfortability of the client, because some clients are comfortable or not comfortable with someone not having any certifications. And so you have to know yourself to know what you would desire out of a doula. So if you desire a doula to be certified and have had, 20 births, 50 births, 100 births, then that's what you feel comfortable with, and that's what you should look into investing in. But if you're looking for perhaps a doula just for like the vibe, the relationship, that's something totally different, education wise. And so one just needs to know self and what they really desire.
That's really good too. And then I know for my situation, they were telling me like I'm already high risk, right? And so thinking too about your own personal medical history and health at that moment, and how that begins to play into, your decision making and who needs to be on deck,
Yeah.
throughout the birthing process.
Yeah, because if you are high risk and there are certain things that you would like a doula to know, that is something very important. Again, that goes back to knowing self. Because let's say you have some type of condition with either your baby or yourself, and this is a very specified condition. You want to go and search for a doula who has had experiences with that already.
That's a great point.
Yeah. It's very important. At that point, the vibe, all of that stuff does not matter. So you need someone who knows what they're talking about, with a particular kind of condition. So in some cases it works, right? Let's say, so recently I had a twin birth. I never had a twin birth before. And so it worked with the vibe and all of that and how I connected with the partners. But if it was a twin birth where one of the children had some type of condition or disorder, it would not work.
Right.
Because there are things you can learn, but there are things that need to be experienced in order to support a person. And I'll always be the first to say, I do not know, right?
Right.
There are times where I will back away from a situation because I know I'm not the appropriate person for a particular condition. There's nothing wrong with saying, I may not be the right person to support this. That's okay. That's all right. I want the best for that family.
Exactly.
And that baby, not, for my own ego to say I've dealt with this particular matter. They need the appropriate person.
Absolutely. That's a really great point, and it makes complete sense. But it's also, I feel like translates to how we go about our health as well, just in general, finding, medical doctors and not just, going blindly off the list of providers that are available, but like what questions we should really be asking, even before we book that first appointment, to make sure that they have expertise in the issues that we're bringing to the table at this point.
Absolutely.
I think that's all I had. Were there any other questions? This has been so eye-opening, clarifying, healing, empowering. I think I found you, Howard alumni reposted you, and I have been looking for a doula, a Black doula, for forever, and I have reached out to some people and wasn't getting a response, and they were famous, and they not Erica. It wasn't Erica. Yeah. But I just really appreciate you responding and being open to the conversation and having it with us. And then sharing a wealth of information that I think we can all take back to our personal space. But, our call, starting with today, is always to be able to share this wealth with our community, with our loved ones, with people that we know are navigating this space right now. And it doesn't have to be, you can share this, this recording when we post it. And then also, just share your notes and information. And then I do want people to be able to know where to find you and how they can get in touch with you. Make sure they write it down. If the quarantine is still going on, so these babies are still quarantine popping.
No, but before I give my like spiel, I also wanted to mention some practices to incorporate
Yes.
to better have a better outcome within the birthing space.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, no problem. For one, mindfulness is so important. Like we spoke about earlier, just taking the moments to be in the space. So I'm sitting here and I feel um, the lights. I can see you. I can hear the noises around me. I can feel my heart beating. I can feel my seat on the floor, being cognizant of the temperature, of the sounds, of the taste in my mouth. Like just being aware is very important for the birthing space. Um, Breathing, pranayama in yoga is what we call it. And the breath is our life's force. That's literally what pranayama means. And so when people are not breathing, they're not being necessarily an active participant within their birth, because we need the breath to guide us in and out of the different phases um, and transitions of a birth. So the breath, super, super important. Let's see, I wrote some other things. Yeah, being aware, how to calm the mind and the body, having the birth plan, creating your birth team, right? So,
Team.
yes, that's
Our
your,
hands on deck.
that can be your doula, your midwife, your doctor, your chiropractor, your pelvic floor therapist. That could be,
That's a
um,
pelvic floor therapist? I didn't even know that was a thing. We're going to Google that as soon as we get off of here.
yeah.
We are.
Mm-hmm. So many people that can support the birthing space. Your herbalist. Let's see, taking childbirth education classes, incredibly important. They have that free at the hospital. They have it free online. You can reach out to me or whomever to discuss childbirth education, positivity, positive thoughts, positive thoughts, positive thoughts. We have already been inundated with so many negative thoughts about birth. So it's very imperative that we look at positive birthing stories. What does that look like? How do you feel after you watch that, right? Different than the fears that are perpetuating all of the birthing space in this particular moment. We don't need that. Let's step into something on the other side. For sure, and gratitude. You wake up, first thing you say is thank you, God, for waking me up, or God, or whomever you believe in, and sitting in gratitude in it all. Oh wow, I'm grateful for my hands are able to write. I can look at you. I can walk to the bathroom. I can use the bathroom. I can brush my teeth. I have teeth to brush. I can afford, right? And so thankful for all of it. And gratitude is one of the highest like energetic forces that we sit in. So I think that is very, very helpful and imperative and necessary for us to be mindful of that. Grateful for this growing being within your body. I mean, at a minimum. Hip opening exercises, getting into nutritional foods. I'm not an advocate for people completely switching their diet just because they're pregnant, but being mindful of the foods that they're consuming and how can they incorporate nutritional foods within that space and time, and how can they transition it postpartum. So there's so many things that one can do to enhance their birthing experience, to step away from the fears, to advocate for self, to just overall better, wiser, um, and walk in gratitude and happiness and joy, and like turn into self, tune into your partner, increase intimacy with not only your partner but your friends, your family. Build this community that this baby has allotted us to all come together to do.
That's so beautiful. And you brought up so many great points about being intentional. One of the things that stood out too, as early in this pandemic, one of the things my therapist had told me about my anxiety and just, being in this this quarantine state was to create an environment that, what does it look like? What does it feel like? And for me, it's candles. To have candles lit.
Yeah.
I'm drinking some ginger tea. It soothes me even after a busy day. So typically on my lives, you'll see me drinking because I'm settling down. You are very your spirit energy is also healing. Just in hearing you talk. So it's kind of my wind down time too, and just kind of really connect to myself. But I think that's a great practice, definitely, to be more intentional about now. But then also beginning to reimagine what are our themes for this year that's rolling out tomorrow is creating Black future and reimagining what does our world look like without the weight of oppression.
Yes.
And how can we move towards that?
Yeah.
And not constantly have to navigate that while we are navigating it, right? But I think what you spoke about is, getting those positive images in place and recreating a positive narrative within our minds and within our hearts and within our spirits, and then beginning to communicate that to the people around us. Because I think a lot of times we might go into a situation very positive, and then we talk to someone, or someone at the grocery store gives unsolicited advice, and then you're trying to get food, and then you get some more advice. And so to be really intentional about, protecting that space and your energy and your energy gates, for sure, to make sure that, good vibes are surrounding you, and then you have your own practices to make sure that you can tap back into to go through really your birthing Black future, right? And then also, reimagining what does a healed birthing, loving birthing experience looks like for our communities and for ourselves. So I think that's amazing for you to be intentional about that and to bring that up into our awareness, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. So now I can say,
Yes. How can we find you? How can we stay in touch? How can we tell our
yes.
friends about you? All that.
Yes. So on Instagram, I am the Doula You Desire. That is Doula, Doula, Desire, Desire. And that's because my name is Desiree. So that is my Instagram alias. I also have Desired Doulas, which is the name of my business, which is Desired, Desired, Doulas, Doulas. And that's also on Instagram. And on both pages, you can find my website and find out a lot more information about me and what my practice does. This has been an excellent program. Very thankful to you for allowing me to have this conversation with you and to bring it to your audience. And yeah, I very much enjoy these kind of conversations. It's very uplifting and I enjoy.
Yes, thank you so much, and definitely looking forward to like a continued partnership, and whenever outside opens again, to be able to bring this to our community in person, because we feel like this is a huge conversation, important conversation, vital conversation, life-giving, life-saving conversation that we need to begin to not begin to have, but continue to have in our communities and amplify in our spaces, especially for our generation and younger. So looking forward to much more. So thank you so much. We greatly, greatly appreciate your time, your energy, your information. And we hope this was beneficial. Thank you to everyone who joined us tonight.
Yes,
Thank you for your questions and your engagement and spending your Wednesday afternoon with us. We appreciate it. We don't take it for granted. We will make this available on Instagram, and then also on YouTube. And we'll post that link once it's available so you can share it again to make sure people have the information and access that they need. So thank you so much. We will be back. I have not even posted a flyer yet because life is crazy, but we'll be back here next Thursday with Tariq Omari Walton, and we're doing a Q&A, Ask a Black Therapist. So join us next week. Tell a friend, bring a friend. So we're doing Black therapy on the spot next week. So we gotta go. So thank you so much, y'all. Y'all have a great, blessed evening and great week. It's about to snow in DC. We're sending love and light to Texas. I'm from Texas, and my family's there, so we're sending love and light and warmth to everyone who is going through, you know, the outages, and the extreme cold. So praying that we all get through that, and then we look forward to seeing what we can do on the other side of this. All right.
Excellent.
That's all I have. If our hearts and minds are clear.
Yes. Transition into your next step. Take a moment for mindfulness, and then you can go about the next step in your life.
Absolutely. Will do. Definitely.
All
Thank
right.
you so much, Désirée.
Have a good night.
Good night.